My mother-in-law just asked me the cutest question, so I thought I'd share it before I get to today's topic. She was like, Denise, your hair looks so beautiful. How do you get it to be so slicked back? I said, oh, I can answer this question. There's two parts to it. Number one, my ponytail is so tight that I'm going to give myself a headache. And number two, the second piece of that puzzle is just a lot of hair product to push all my baby hairs down. That is how I get it to look so slick. But that's just a cute story I thought I'd start off with today, and not at all why you were here. Last week, if you joined me, we talked all about forgiveness of others and what that looks like, what that means, how to adopt a forgiving heart. We also talked a little bit about why you might find yourself in the over forgiveness spiral. And I think so many people related to that, saying, hey, I find myself forgiving people too much, and I find myself forgiving people way more than they actually deserve to be forgiven. So we talked about those two aspects last week. This week, I want to dive a little bit into self-forgiveness. And if I'm being honest, of the two, forgiveness of others or forgiveness of self, I find that far more people, and this could be applicable to you too, find self-forgiveness all that much harder. And I really wanted us to dig deep and understand why that is, because I mean, really, and we'll get into this later in the topic, like to be able to forgive others starts with being able to forgive yourself. And if you have a hard time forgiving yourself for things that you shoulda, woulda, coulda, it can have a real impact on your overall health and wellness. So this week we're going to talk a little bit about We're going to talk for probably a half an hour about self-forgiveness, and hopefully by the end of this you'll be able to soften and have a little bit more self-compassion and self-love for yourself, and you'll be able to have an easier time letting go, because that is what forgiveness is all about, letting go. And as same as last week, just because we're working on self-forgiveness doesn't mean we're forgiven, doesn't mean we're getting a getting out of jail free card. Okay, that was a mouthful. It simply means that we're refocusing our energy. So let's talk about this for just a hot minute. But I mean, ultimately, if we really think about self-forgiveness and why this is so difficult for so many of you, there's a lot to do with like perfectionistic tendencies coming into play here, right? Because as human beings, and specifically probably as women, we're just so gosh darn hard on ourselves. Really. I mean, we just hold ourselves to these impossible standards to the point where it is like not acceptable to do anything wrong. And I mean, we're going to make mistakes, right? That's just simply part of our nature. It's who we are. So how can we ever hold ourselves to that standard, right? So let's keep that in the back of our minds as we navigate this topic. Like, you don't have to be so hard on yourself. You can't be perfect all the time. And really, being perfect is boring, according to the book of Denise. But I mean, that's neither here nor there. So let's talk about self-forgiveness, and let's start with talking about why you might be here today. And one of the reasons might be you tuned in last week and you heard me talking about forgiveness of others, and you were like, yeah, I got that down, I got that under control, but how do I forgive myself? So you're like, okay, I'm going to tune in next week. That, and I want to see Denise speak, obviously, and you want to learn why is it so difficult? Why do I have such a hard time letting go of this? Why do I have such a hard time forgiving myself for things that were done, that I did in the past? Like, why do I keep harboring so much resentment to myself? Because it's causing self-hatred, and it's causing me to not feel good about myself. And you want to learn a little bit about why that is, kind of the inner mechanics and the inner foundational workings behind why that might be. And you want to find forgiveness for yourself. Ultimately, that's the desire. You want to be able to forgive yourself. More than anything else, you want to stop hanging on to these things, but you just don't know how, because you're having these like thoughts that are going through your mind, and you feel like you're letting yourself off the hook, and you just like, I don't know, Denise, I don't know, how do I forgive myself? Please just tell me how, show me the way. And at the end of the day, I am here to serve in the best way possible. So now that we know why you're here, and that is because you want to forgive yourself, let's just throw down a definition. I only have one today, and it's from the American Psychological Association, because I felt like it really felt, okay, I can't speak today. It's because I didn't ground myself before I started this video, and whenever I do that, I find like I just trip up over my words. So if you're going to film a video of yourself for social media, ground yourself first, and you will have a better flow. But anyways, the APA, I felt like the definition was suitable today, and I didn't feel like I needed anything else. So let's do that first. Self-forgiveness is the practice of forgiving yourself of past wrongdoings. It involves changing your perception of yourself and what happened through the eyes of self-compassion and self-understanding. By understanding the deeper mechanics of why you did what you did and holding yourself in the embrace of self-love, you can let go, move on, and feel free again. I was like, mwah. That put a nice bow on exactly what I wanted to say about self-forgiveness, so there was no need to search out any other definitions. But Really, so often your inability to forgive yourself is rooted deeply in self hatred or self loathing. You feel so much shame, guilt, anger, upset about what you might have done. And when I talk about something that you've done, it doesn't matter if it's towards somebody else or towards yourself. Because sometimes, like when it comes to self-forgiveness, you're like, why did I let that happen to me? Why did I let that person do those awful things to me? Why didn't I see things sooner? So it's like you're mad at yourself more than you're mad at, like, more often than you're mad about something you did to another person, if that makes sense. I find mostly when we're talking about self-forgiveness, it's like, why did I let this happen to me, as opposed to like, why did I do such a bad thing to another person? But I mean, obviously, if you're practicing self-forgiveness, maybe you did wrong someone, maybe you did hurt someone, and that is what you're having a hard time letting go of. But I find, so more often than not, it's about having had let something happen to you, right? And when that happens, there's this deep shame. Like, how could I forgive myself for that? Like, I let somebody trample all over me. I let somebody hurt me so deeply to my core. Like, how could I do that? I'm not even worthy of that forgiveness because I let this terrible thing happen to me. Why did I do that? But I mean, let's keep in mind, and I will say this later as well, you don't know what you don't know until you know it. It is probably one of my most favorite statements that I'm always sharing with you. Like, if you don't have the wisdom, if you don't have the knowledge, if you don't have the information with you when you let something happen to you, how could you have stopped it, right? And it's this like rumination in the past, and this using your energy to think about the shoulda, woulda, couldas that keep you stuck, that keep you in this spiral of self-loathing and self-hatred. And I don't want that for anybody here. This is all about self-love and raising everybody's vibration. And while it feels impossible to ever achieve this level of self-forgiveness, because again, this is all being backed by you feeling like you're letting yourself off the hook for something, I assure you that with practice, with self-compassion, with a willingness to want to let go, you can achieve self-forgiveness. And more than that, you're worthy of self-forgiveness. You truly are. I want you to know that, and I want to validate that. If you're struggling with this, first of all, your feelings are very valid. And second of all, you are worthy of saying, okay, this happened. I did this XYZ to somebody, or I let XYZ happen to me, but that doesn't make me any less worthy of forgiving myself for what transpired, right? And keep in mind too, and I said this in the beginning, you are your own worst critic. I have suffered with this too, where you hold yourself to this impossible standard, and it makes it even more difficult and more challenging to find forgiveness for yourself because you feel like you have to reach this unattainable standard, but you don't. Let's lower the bar. I mean, normally I wouldn't say that. You want to like hit the bar high, but when it comes to yourself, because the bar is already like 10 times over 100, it's sitting up there at 1,000%. That's the bar. Let's bring it down. You're allowed to make mistakes. You're only human. So, and at the end of the day, really, how does wallowing in self-hatred help and loathing help? Does it take away anything? Does it delete anything? Does it make anything different? Does it make the past different? It doesn't. It just continues to hurt you, continues to hurt your heart, continues to hurt your soul. And we want to just kind of take as much of that away as we can today. Speaking language, English, let's do it. But I want you to ask yourself this question before we move on. Is holding on to shame and self-hatred making the situation that requires self-forgiveness better? Really ruminate and sit with that. And if you just heard my stomach, it's growling. I can feel it growling, and I could hear it growling. So you might hear a little bit from my stomach during this as well too, because holding on to shame and self-hatred is not making the situation that requires self-forgiveness better. It's just hurting you more than anything else. But let's talk a little bit about why you're probably struggling with self-forgiveness even to begin with, right? And before I move on to that, I want to make a quick note, because there are some people that are quick to forgive themselves, quick to be like, well, I just forgive me for that. I'm moving right along. They don't take any responsibility for their actions. They don't have any, feelings of guilt or upset. They just kind of like put a Band-Aid on it and just say, okay, I'm forgiven, moving on. This is probably not who you are. If you're part of this community, if you're part of this group, if you're watching this video, that's probably not you. But there are people out there that use self-forgiveness as a way to deny responsibility, right? But part of this self-forgiveness journey is taking responsibility. But I digress. Let's get into why this might be a little bit difficult for you. Because like we talked about earlier, you are holding yourself overly accountable. You're being too hard on yourself. when it comes to self-forgiveness, and you're holding yourself up to a standard that you would hold nobody else up to. So if someone did something to you and they were apologetic, you would probably forgive them if they were genuinely apologetic for something. But at the same time, if you were to do that same thing either to yourself or another person, you would think it was completely unforgivable. So you're holding yourself far too accountable. And when that happens, it makes it way more difficult to freaking forgive yourself, because you're like holding yourself up on this pedestal and you expect yourself to do no wrong. So obviously this is going to have an effect on your ability to forgive yourself. And perfectionistic tendencies, I believe I have done a video on that. If I have, I will link it for you. I'm pretty sure I did. If I did, I will link it for you for sure, so you can check that one out, because perfectionistic tendencies are something that we've all struggled with, and you've probably struggled with. I know I sure have. But let's not keep ourselves on that high standard. Let's give ourselves a break, okay? Another reason this is really a challenge is because you feel responsible for everyone and everything, and your circle of responsibility is way too big. Okay, there are only certain, you don't have to be responsible for everybody and everything all the time. There is your circle of responsibility. You're responsible for yourself. If you have children, you're responsible for your children, perhaps to your partner. There is a small circle of people you're responsible for. But if you consider yourself responsible for not only your immediate family, but your extended family, and your extended family's extended family, and your neighbor, and the people across the street, and people two towns over. If you consider your circle of responsibility to be that big, you are inevitably going to feel like you're making mistakes consistently, because it's impossible to keep all these people happy. It really is, right? So there's going to be somebody upset with you all the time, and if there's somebody upset with you all the time, it then becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, I am a bad person. I am somebody that hurts other people constantly. And if I'm hurting all these people and all these people are upset with me because my circle of responsibility is far too big and I've made it that big, how can I forgive myself? Obviously, if everyone's mad at me all the time, there's something wrong with me. I'm the problem. Am I the drama? That's a TikTok reference. You might get it, you might not. But for the people that do, I'm sure you have a smile on your face right now. But yeah, it's going to make it harder for you to self-forgive, because then you're going to think of yourself as a bad person because you can't make everybody happy, right? So that's another part of this reason why self-forgiveness is so hard. Check yourself. And ask yourself, who do I feel like I'm responsible for, and who am I actually responsible for? Because there's probably a big difference between the two. Keep your circle small. Those are the people you're responsible for. And more than anything, you're responsible for yourself, your actions, and your behaviors. That's another reason why this becomes a challenge, right? Another reason is you categorize yourself as inherently bad. And this can be directly linked to your circle of responsibility. Again, I just spoke about a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you feel like you're inherently bad, if that is the program you put in your brain, I am inherently bad, I hurt everybody, I hurt myself, I hurt them, everyone's mad at me, constantly letting everybody down, this is the evidence that you're going to continue to receive. And it then becomes something that you internalize, you identify with. And if you feel as though I'm inherently bad, it's going to be way harder to be able to find forgiveness for yourself. But remember, if this is probably a habitual story you've told yourself, and it's probably something that's running on autopilot, and one of those programs that you have to ask yourself, wait. Is this for real, or is this not for real? Am I actually a bad person? Do I have evidence to suggest I'm a bad person? Or is this something I've been telling myself for so long that is just no longer valid and is simply not the case? But if you think you're inherently bad, quote unquote, then it's going to be all that much harder to find forgiveness for yourself, because you're like, I'm a bad person, right? Finally, and most importantly, you feel like you're letting yourself off the hook. And we talked about this last week with the forgiveness of others. You think, if I forgive myself, it makes everything I did to others or what I've done to myself acceptable. But this could not be further from the case. It's just you choosing to use your energy in a different way. So sometimes it's about taking responsibility, being remorseful for what you've done either to yourself or someone else, and then allowing yourself permission to be able to release that guilt, that shame, that anger, that bitterness, and say, okay, I've ruminated on this long enough. I am going to allow myself to forgive and move on. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't mean what you did was right. All it means is that you're choosing and giving yourself permission to forgive and start to move on. But it doesn't make it right. I want to just kind of say that. But when you think about that, when you're always thinking, it means I'm giving myself a pass, of course it's going to be harder to forgive yourself, because you're always thinking, well, does that make what I did right? And there's a conflict there of thought. So no, it doesn't make it right, but you are allowed to move on. You don't have to hold on to this forever. So in the celebration of not holding on to things forever, let's talk about why self-forgiveness is friggin' epic, okay? I said friggin'. I didn't say the other F word. So why is self-forgiveness epic? Because it's an opportunity to release the past and begin to move forward free of shame. You are allowed to move forward, okay? And as you self-forgive, you become more mindful of the present moment. Because if you think about it, if you're unable to forgive yourself, it means that you're living in the past. You're not living in the now. And if you really carefully consider what the now means, there's only one now. There's only one right here. There's only one present moment. So if you can allow yourself to forgive yourself, then you have all this extra ability to be in the present moment, to enjoy the things that you do have, to find gratitude for the people in your life, the things that you have, the beauty that is around you. But you cannot do that if you're continuing to ruminate in the past. So you naturally become more mindful. And as you become more mindful, you become more grateful. And as you become more grateful, you become more happy. Okay? See how this all kind of like rolls into one? And when you're this happy, when you're this mindful, you can start to embrace self-love, have self-compassion. Who doesn't need a little bit of extra love for themselves? But if you continue to feel in the shame spiral, if you continue to feel like you can't forgive yourself and begin to move on, you can't experience that, right? And I mean, this is a big one. More energy, more zest for life, more joie de vivre, whatever the terminology you want to use is. When you're not ruminating about what was, you have more energy to do new things, to do more exciting things, to start making yourself happy. And it could be that you start, if you're really feeling bad or guilty about something, you can use your energy in a different way. You can use your energy to give back, to support other people. Maybe it's volunteering. Maybe it's, helping the people across the street with their snow, digging themselves out or digging their car out. But you have more energy this way, more zest to be able to do other things that were once before wrapped up in feeling this self-loathing and this inability to forgive yourself, right? And ultimately, and I am a firm believer, and I might get guff for this and I might get crap for this, but that's okay. I am willing to take that on. But everything, every challenge, every mistake, every misstep, every situation is an opportunity to learn. It is an opportunity to grow. It is an opportunity to expand. And if you look at it that way, even if the situation is good, bad, or indifferent, there is an opportunity to grow there. So if you can find self-forgiveness and say, what is the lesson I was meant to learn in this? What is the lesson I was meant to learn in this mistake, in this problem, in this challenge, in this situation? And you can move on and you can grow from it. It makes the process of self-forgiveness a little bit easier because you are actually saying, I've learned something from this and I'm growing and expanding because of it. And ultimately, you can soften and find forgiveness for yourself. And as you find forgiveness for yourself, your ability to forgive others and have a forgiving heart increases naturally. And when you no longer consider yourself a bad person, the self-fulfilling prophecy stops. You stop gaining more and more evidence that you are a bad person when you let go of that. Okay? Whew, that was powerful. I need a drink because my mouth is dry. Like you needed to know that, but obviously. So let's talk a little bit about the journey towards self-forgiveness. And I'm calling it a journey really intentionally because that is what this is. It doesn't just, like if you've been holding on to anger towards yourself for mistakes made or things you allowed to happen to you, if you've been holding it on for a really, really long time, maybe even years, maybe 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, for as long as you can remember even, this is going to be a process. It's not just going to happen overnight. So it's a journey. So I'm calling it that for a reason, because that is what it is. Patience required. I have an asterisk beside that and an exclamation mark. So it must be very important. But anything with self-development is going to require patience. It's going to require you to be a little bit gentle with yourself. So let's talk about the journey towards self-forgiveness. Number one, this is my favorite. Stop being a shithole. Should-hole. I didn't say a swear, I promise. But if you spend more time saying, I should have done this, I could have done this, I would have done this differently, if you shoulda, woulda, could yourself all the time, you're never going to be able to move away from it. The past is the past. The past is done. That's the thing. We spend so much time thinking about the past when really there's no changing it. So what then is the point of continuing to live in the past and thinking about what you could have changed or should have changed or would have changed? There really is, when you think about it at the core, it ends up being a waste of your precious energetic resources because there's nothing you can do to change it, right? So that's the first thing. Don't be a should hole. The only way to move forward is to say, okay, this happened. This was the lesson, but I'm choosing to move on, right? The only way to get over the past is to move into the future. Okay? That's the first and biggest aspect of this. Stop being a shithole. Number 2, you didn't know what you don't know until you know it. And I went over that earlier. So who you were 5 years ago is not who you are today. The wisdom that you have today was not with you 5 years ago. So keep that in mind. And think of it like a child, right? If you made a mistake when you were 8 years old and you're still ruminating about that mistake, you know a lot more now than you did when you were 8. Your brain is far more developed. You have far more wisdom. You have far more tools in your arsenal, right? So you only know what you know when you know it. So have compassion for the person you were then that made a mistake towards yourself or towards others. And understand that, wait a minute, I didn't know then what I know now. Me now would make a totally different decision, but you have to have a little compassion for the person that you were. We are allowed to grow. We are allowed to expand. We're allowed to get better. So that's the kind of the second piece of this puzzle, is knowing that you did what you could with the information you have. Okay. Number 3, the third part of the journey is understanding that mistakes don't make you inherently bad. We all make mistakes. We are human beings. It's going to happen. We aren't perfect. You're not perfect. Okay. I am not perfect. Mary down the street is not perfect. So don't internalize this like messaging that I can never make a mistake, because truth be told, you're going to make a mistake. You're going to make more. You're going to make many, 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 many more. But that doesn't make you a bad person because you hurt somebody else. It doesn't make you inherently bad. It means you did a crappy thing to somebody for sure. Let's call a spade, but it doesn't necessarily make you a bad person. You're allowed to make mistakes so long as you grow from them. Okay? So the fourth aspect of this healing journey, once you've kind of gone through all 3 of those things, because that's like the foundational understanding of what was, is to give yourself some space to feel the feelings. If you're really freaking pissed off at yourself for doing what you did, or and you're angry with you for making this mistake, for allowing things to happen to you, for what you did to another person, it's okay. Give yourself some space to feel those feelings. If you need to like put your face in a pillow and scream, put your face in a pillow and scream, but please be careful. Safety first, right? But find ways to express those emotions and those feelings. And it doesn't need to be face in a pillow. It could be through journaling, writing a letter, doing a meditation, taking a nature walk, being creative, painting it out, singing, dancing, whatever brings you joy, whatever's going to move those feelings through you, you're going to want to do that. Okay? Once we've gotten through all of these steps, then you can start accepting responsibility and expressing remorse. But you've got to get there first. You've got to go through all these other steps, and then you can be like, okay, I have felt the feelings. I can't change the past. I can't, I only know what I know when I know it. Now I can say, I know that I've made this mistake. I admit that I've made this mistake. I let this happen to me. I did this to another person. I am sorry. And genuinely mean it. A lot of people just say sorry and they don't mean it. They just use it as a band-aid. Slap it on there. But if you are genuinely sorry, express that remorse. Say you're sorry to yourself. And I'm going to give you a really cool technique towards the end of this video that you can adopt to do this, and it's really powerful. But own it. Don't be afraid to admit it. So often we're afraid to admit we made a mistake because we wouldn't, what would people think of me? Like, the end of the day, if you can accept responsibility and express remorse in a genuine way, that goes a long way, and it's going to make you feel better about forgiving yourself. Okay? The number 6 in this journey towards forgiveness is reflect on the greater lesson. We talked about this, so I'm not going to talk about it as much here, but everything is a lesson learned. So reflect on the lesson. Ask yourself, how can I use this moment of self-forgiveness to be a better person moving forward? How can I use this to expand myself, to grow, to develop, to be a better version of who I am right now? How can I use this information to make the future better for me? And if you can reflect on that lesson learned, again, it'll make it a little bit easier for you to do this process of self-forgiveness. Okay? And finally, once you get to this point, you can begin to release and really let go. Say, I forgive you, Mary. I forgive you, Denise. I forgive you, Shelly. I forgive you, Tammy. I feel like Romper Room, This is what this is reminding me of. Do you remember that show, Romper Room? Where they looked in the mirror and they were like, I see Kelly, I see Leslie, I see Elizabeth. They never said Denise. Never one time, okay? And I think I'm still bitter about that. I might have to reflect and do some journaling after this to think about how bitter I am about that, but again, release and let go. Once you've made that decision, once you've done all of this work, then you can say, okay, I forgive myself for this. I am allowed to move on. I am allowed to stop ruminating. I am allowed to get past this and do just that. Give yourself permission. Give yourself permission. And if after all that journey you're still having a hard time, it's time to seek support, because somebody needs to kind of interject and be like, okay, I'm gonna support you on this journey towards self-forgiveness, and we might need to dig a little bit deeper. So that is another great thing you can do. And don't be afraid to talk about it. Really, don't be afraid to talk about a mistake you've made, because it's through that talking about it that you get it out of your brain, you're out of your mind, and you can have a more like objective perspective on it, as opposed to like living in your own head. But before we close out today, I want to talk about this incredible Hawaiian forgiveness teaching. And I found this as I was doing research for this topic, and I tried it for myself a couple of times, and I was like beyond emotional, first of all, every time I did it. And it's so simple. When I read about it, I was like, okay, this is just like far too simple. There's no way in heck that this is going to work. And I started to do it, and I was like, holy cow. And I'm feeling emotional even just thinking about it. So I'm gonna say the word, and I wrote it phonetically because I don't want to mess it up. It's ho'oponopono. 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 And it's this Hawaiian technique for forgiveness and I'm using it specifically in the forgiveness of self one, because that's where I found it most applicable to me. But according to the research, you can do this to forgive other people. There is a wide variety of ways you can use this, but I'm going to use it as it applies to self-forgiveness. And I'm going to give an example, because I've been very mean to my body in my lifetime. I've never felt like it was good enough. I've never felt like it was beautiful enough. I have never felt like it was worthy of love, because so many people my whole life growing up told me it wasn't good enough. Right? So I am going to show you how this technique is used by using that example of forgiving myself for being so mean to my body. So step one of this Hawaiian technique is repentance and saying, I am sorry. And how this looked like for me was saying, I am sorry, and I'm talking to my body, I am sorry to my body for spending so much time being worried about what other people thought of you, for not thinking you were good enough, for not thinking you were beautiful enough. I am truly tremendously sorry. And I'm talking literally to my body. And this is what you're going to do for anything that you want to practice self-forgiveness for. Step two is forgiveness. Please forgive me. Please forgive me, body, for everything I said to you. Please forgive me for all of the things that I did in an attempt to make you smaller, to make you better, to make you look better, all the ways I tortured you. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. I am so sorry. And then step three is gratitude. Thank you, body, for all you do for me. Thank you so much for keeping me alive, for caring for me in a way that nobody else can. Thank you for being there. And step four finally is love. Body, I love you. I love you for who you are. You are beautiful. You are worthy. You are wonderful. Thank you. I love you. 4 simple steps. Saying you are sorry, asking for forgiveness, practicing gratitude, and saying I love you. It's 4 simple things, a small technique, but I did this for so many different things because I wanted to just try it on for size, and there were so many of them that really made me weep and have emotion, because it's that powerful. So it's just a small little technique that you can use. And if you did try it out, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your experience. But all this to say, you have permission to forgive yourself. You are worthy of forgiveness, and you're worthy of letting go. So keep that in mind, and I'll see you soon.